What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Funboxing with Will. I'm Will, and this is H2O Co-Film and Photo coming at you with another review today. Today's review is going to be on the Canon EOS M50, so if you find any of this information at all useful, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to see more content on reviews, overviews, product unboxings, and things like that, generally in tech or camera gear, go ahead and subscribe for further content. Thanks for subscribing if you already have. Before I get started with the review, I wanted to go over something I said in my last video that I found out later was wrong. I did an overview on the Canon T8i that's supposed to be released at the end of February this month. And when I first was reading about it in Canon rumors, it had said that they were going to have dual pixel autofocus in the camera in 4K mode, and I later found out that that was wrong information, so I just wanted to recant because I feel like it's important that I give the most accurate information that I possibly can while I'm doing these videos. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I was wrong. Now, that being said, I digress. I'm going to get into the review of the Canon EOS M50. So the EOS M50 is a mirrorless camera. I love it. It's Canon's. It was in 2018 their flagship mirrorless camera, I believe. It was the first camera to introduce the Digic 8 processor. Its build quality is pretty solid. It feels pretty good in the hands, and for being less than a pound, it's pretty compact and heavy, almost for being as light as it is, if that makes any sense at all. It's really well built. It's like almost like picking up an iPhone with the quality build. But the one thing I did notice is that the buttons are really hard to reach because of how small it is. It's a very compact camera, as you can see. So it's about half the size of my DSLR, and instead of weighing 1.79 pounds, it weighs 0.73 pounds, I think, something like that. So it's a lot lighter than your average DSLR, and because of that, I think the button placement is just gonna be awkward if you have big hands at all. It's kind of hard to reach the buttons and the dials on to function, the ISO adjustments and stuff like that while you're filming. So you kind of want to get your settings in beforehand, unless you have like super small hands. And the buttons also kind of feel toyish a little bit, but other than that, the build is incredible. It's got a 3.5 inch or 3.1 inch, I'm sorry, touch screen, fully articulating screen. So if you want to vlog with this camera, it's really convenient to get to the settings in the front. The build quality is overall really well. Now, it has battery life that's not so great because of the electronic viewfinder. Being a mirrorless camera, it doesn't have a mirror in between the lens and the sensor to get in the way, so you get a little bit crisper of a photo because the lens is so close to the sensor, almost like with a full frame. But it is an APS crop sensor camera, so you're going to have to multiply your lens focal length by 1.6 if you're going to put it on this camera here to get your accurate or actual focal length of your lens. But other than that, it's I love the camera. It shoots in 1080p at 23.9 frames per second. It also shoots at 60 frames a second, and it will do 720p in 120 frames a second. So I don't know anybody who still records in 720p, but it has that feature there. So I'm guessing if it's a really well lit subject, and you could probably get some really good crispy slow motion out of it. I don't know. I haven't tried the 720p yet myself, but anyways, it's gonna drain battery life a lot because of the electronic viewfinder. The one thing I've noticed about this camera is that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is that if you do flash photography, there are times where you want to drop your ISO really low, and in an optical viewfinder you can still focus on your subject in front of you because your optical viewfinder shows you your environment. Whereas with a mirrorless, you have your EVF on there. You're pretty much seeing the exact settings that the photo is going to be coming out as in the end. So when you're looking through your viewfinder and you have your ISO kicked really low in a dark room, but you have a flash to compensate when you put that pull that shutter with, like, whether it's tethered or on a remote sensor, you're not going to be able to focus on your subject. So you have to focus on your subject first, then kick up the ISO or kick down the ISO, and then progress to take your photo pretty much blind with an EVF. That's the one downside to it that I've noticed. Everything else about it I seem to enjoy a lot. other than the battery drain, of course. It gives all the settings. You can actually even play back and watch the videos you've recorded and look at the photos you've taken through the EVF if you want. If that's, if it's a bright day outside and you can't see the back of the LCD screen, it's a good way to go over your footage. Now, the battery life in this is rated for 250 shots, which is really kind of bad, so I would definitely consider picking up an extra battery for this camera. The battery life in, like, let's say comparable my T7i here is, I think, 1,300 shots or 1,100 shots, something like that, ridiculous, on one battery. This is only 250, so that EVF does really kill a lot of the battery really quick. Although there is an eco mode into the camera and some other power saving settings that you can kick into the camera itself that help with that. Some of the other features it has is you can buy a third-party battery with this, and there's a little plug built into the battery cap here, so you can unplug that. You take that little plug out and you can put a battery in here that is connectable. You can buy them on Amazon for like 20 bucks. You connect a cord to it and it can either go into a USB-C type charger into the wall, or it can go into a battery pack, which is pretty useful. You can stream constant video with that and you never have to worry about your battery dying. So as far as for vloggers go or anybody else, this is a great camera. It's amazing for that kind of streaming, YouTube stuff, this kind of stuff right here. Now, one of the reasons I got it for 3 reasons. One was because I knew that I wanted a backup camera for having a business. It's always good to have a backup camera. Second, this has eye detection in it, which is amazing. So I really wanted to get that as well. That's why I went mirrorless. And the third reason I got it was that I heard that it had 4K. Now, the 4K, there's some major caveats with, and the funny thing is that I knew about 2 of them and it didn't bother me enough to not get the camera. The third one, however, is what makes, in my opinion, the 4K in this camera almost useless. I think it's more of a gimmick by Canon just to get people to buy the camera, because, so the first one is the dual pixel autofocus, which is enabled in this camera. It has dual pixel autofocus. It's some of the best autofocusing programming on the planet. Canon is responsible for that. Thank you, Canon. But when you enter 4K mode, which is kind of like what I was talking about in the previous video about how the TAI is not going to have it enabled, they disable dual pixel autofocus when in 4K. Now, the president of the company came out and flat out said they do that because they want to protect their higher end line of cameras. They want to make sure that there's a reason for you to go out and spend an extra $1,000 on one of their more expensive cameras. So that features in the 4K, I believe, on the 1DX Mark II and in the EOS R, and probably in this new EOS R5 they just announced as well. But they take it out when you're using the EOS 50, or the EOS M50, sorry. They disable it. So, as well as in the T8i, there is no dual pixel autofocus in this camera in 4K mode. I was okay with that until I saw the contrast autofocus, which is their alternative, and it's horrible. It is terrible. The one good thing that's a saving grace in the camera is that it does have focus peaking. So when you're in manual focus in 4K mode, you can focus it on your subject and it'll highlight the exterior of whatever is in focus with a vibrant color, whether it's red, green, or blue. You get to pick in the settings. So that's a pretty neat feature, and it helps you a lot while you're in 4K get the right thing in focus pretty much. Now, that being said, the second reason that I was iffy about the 4K was that there is an additional 1.6 crop factor on the 4K, which is, it's a pain in the butt when you already have a 1.6 crop sensor. So when you put it in 4K, you can't really vlog in 4K or stream in 4K unless you have your camera about 10 feet away from you, because it's just going to show your face. That's it. You're not going to get any background to you at all. With the, I think it's like a 3.2 crop at that point. I'm not sure on the math, but 2 1.6 crops. So you have to multiply an additional factor to your lenses, and that's what you're going to be sitting at. So that is the second reason that I was really iffy about it. But those 2 reasons weren't enough to deter me for it. If you're going to buy this camera for 4K, just get that thought out of your mind, and this is why, and I'll tell you why. It's because rolling shutter in 4K in this camera is so terrible, it's ridiculous. You cannot use the 4K for any movement whatsoever unless you were panning like an ant, slow like a turtle. You know, you can't. if you don't know what rolling shutter is, essentially the APS sensor in the camera records kind of like a printer when it takes an image. So it records the top part of the sensor and then scrolls down the sensor. So the bottom part of the image is actually being recorded after the top part of the image. And in 4K mode, you can reduce your shutter speed. When I called Canon, that's what they told me. They said try to reduce your shutter speed to as low as you can get away with, but I still notice a terrible shutter roll. And so when you move the camera even slightly, whatever your subject is starts doing this like weird warping thing in the image. And so for you to do any kind of anything other than a static shot with this, you're going to have it on a tripod or slider moving extremely slow, just so you don't get that rolling shutter. And between that, the crop, and the lack of dual pixel autofocus, I've just found the 4K in this camera to be pretty useless. Since I bought it, I've kind of veered away from doing 4K video anyways, because most people consume content nowadays on smartphones or tablets, so there's really no need to have 4K. 1080p is more than adequate, and I couldn't find somebody who could tell me the difference between 4K and 1080p on a 6-inch cell phone. So, I mean, if you have like a 65-inch OLED TV you're watching your media on, then yeah, you care about that. But if you're just watching it on a tablet or a phone, it's not that big of a deal. So I haven't been putting a lot of emphasis on 4K video. This is going to be recorded in 1080p, and also, but you put it on YouTube, they condense and compress everything anyways, so it really doesn't matter. But overall, it is a great camera for vlogging with. It's a great camera for on the go, and it's super lightweight. You're not going to get tired holding this thing out in front of you all day as you would if you were holding out like a DSLR like my T7i. It's almost 2 pounds. You're going to get tired a lot quicker holding that than this little thing. So I would definitely suggest it for travel photography. The price point now isn't that bad. It was $8.99 when it first came out. Since then they've dropped it to I think $6.99 on Amazon with a kit lens. So it's dropped almost $200 or $300 in the last year and a half since it's been released. I picked this one up on Facebook Marketplace. I paid $358 for it with a lens, a case, the strap, a battery, and the charger. So it was a pretty damn good deal that I got for it. Other than that, the flash on it is a manual flash. You have to pull it up yourself, like a lot of the Canon cameras have a setting where you just press a button and it pops up. This one you actually have 2 little grip indentations there that you pull up in the end. And I think that's about it. It's a really great camera. It has eye detection. It does really good for portrait photography, and you can get some really good wide angle shots with the kit lens that comes with it. It comes with a 15 to 45 millimeter lens, and when you multiply that by the crop, it starts off with a kit lens of 24 millimeters. So that's a really wide angle shot. I use it for a lot of wide angle work. It's a beautiful camera, and I'm going to keep it in my arsenal for a long time. So again, thanks for watching the video. This has been another review by Will at H2OCO Film and Photo. Hit like and subscribe if you like this video, and thanks for your support. Stay creative, my friends. Have a good day.